At its zenith, the Roman Empire stretched from the misty moors of Scotland to the burning sands of Syria. It was a civilization of unparalleled engineering and administrative complexity. Statues of emperors watched over a population of millions, projecting an image of eternal stability. 50,000 miles of paved roads bound the provinces to the capital. The legions were the guarantors of the Pax Romana, a peace enforced by the sword. Yet, the sheer scale of the territory proved to be a formidable enemy. Communication between the frontiers and the Senate could take weeks or even months. By the late 3rd century, the empire had grown too vast for a single ruler to govern. The Tetrarchy attempted to divide the burden, splitting the realm into east and west. Constantine shifted the center of gravity eastward, founding a new capital on the Bosphorus. This pivot left the West increasingly isolated and vulnerable. In Rome, the aristocracy remained wealthy, but the infrastructure began to fade. The Senate, once the engine of the Republic, had become a ceremonial body. Power moved to the countryside, where massive villas operated like independent fiefdoms. The sun was setting on the classical age, though few perceived the coming darkness. The seeds of collapse were sown in the economy. The currency was systematically debased. Hyperinflation made basic goods unaffordable for the urban poor. To fund the military, the state increased taxes to crushing levels. Farmers, unable to pay, abandoned their lands, reducing the food supply. The state provided free grain, the cura annonae, to keep the Roman mob pacified. Corruption became endemic. Public office was bought and sold. Citizens no longer wished to serve in the legions, forcing reliance on mercenaries. Germanic warriors, the foederati, were hired to fight Rome's battles. Their loyalty was to their commanders and their gold, not to the idea of Rome. Cities began to fortify themselves, shrinking behind new, thicker walls. The rise of Christianity shifted focus from the earthly empire to the kingdom of heaven. Old temples were shuttered, their eternal fires extinguished. Bishops began to wield more local authority than imperial magistrates. Physical decay mirrored the social. Infrastructure maintenance plummeted. The ultra-wealthy withdrew into luxury, ignoring the crumbling state. Plagues swept through the population, thinning the ranks of taxpayers and soldiers. Garrisons stood half-empty, ghosts of their former strength. Frequent civil wars bled the legions dry, pitting Roman against Roman. Generals declared themselves emperor, destabilizing the succession. Meanwhile, the East grew richer, building walls and hoarding gold. The two halves of the empire drifted apart, often refusing to aid one another. A rigid caste system locked citizens into their professions, stifling innovation. Diplomacy became a game of paying bribes to keep enemies at bay. But the gold was running out. On the borders, the warning fires began to burn more frequently. Far to the east, a new terror was rising from the steppes. The Huns, expert horsemen who lived and died in the saddle. Their advance pushed the Germanic tribes westward, crashing against the Roman border. The Danube River, once a secure barrier, was now a refugee camp. Roman officials debated, allow them in as farmers or repel them as invaders. In 376, they were allowed to cross. It was a decision that would doom the empire. corrupt Roman governors exploited the refugees, trading dog meat for children. Hunger turned to rage. The Goths rose up, not as invaders, but as betrayed subjects. At Adrianople in 378, the unthinkable happened. The Emperor Valens was killed in battle, a Roman emperor slain by barbarians. The shockwave shattered the myth of Roman invincibility. Theodosius managed to broker a peace, but the Goths remained within the borders, armed. Among them rose a leader who knew Rome's weaknesses, Alaric. Only one man stood in his way, Stilicho, a half-Vandal general defending Rome. But the Roman court feared Stilicho's power more than Alaric's army. In a fit of paranoia, the Emperor Honorius ordered Stilicho's execution. With Stilicho dead, the legions were leaderless. The road to Rome was open. Alaric marched south, not to conquer, but to demand payment and land. He laid siege to the Eternal City, starving it into submission. Inside, the famine was so severe that rumors of cannibalism spread. Repeated negotiations failed. Honorius, safe in Ravenna, refused to compromise. On August 24, 410 AD, the Salaria Gate was opened, some say by treachery. For the first time in 800 years, a foreign army entered Rome. The sack of Rome had begun. Temples were stripped of their gold, statues were toppled. Yet Alaric, a Christian, ordered the churches to be spared. The physical damage was limited, but the psychological blow was fatal. Saint Jerome, writing from Bethlehem, lamented, "The city which had taken the whole world was itself taken." After 3 days, Alaric left the city, carrying wagons of treasure. He died soon after, buried under a riverbed to keep his grave secret. Rome survived, but it was a shadow of itself. The aura of invincibility was gone forever. The empire began to shed its provinces. Britain was told to look to its own defenses. The Vandals crossed into Africa, capturing the empire's breadbasket. With Carthage lost, the grain shipments to Rome ceased. In the mid-5th century, a new scourge appeared, Attila the Hun. Known as the Scourge of God, he ravaged both east and west. Rome turned to Aetius, the last of the Romans, to stop him. At the Catalonian plains, a coalition of Romans and Visigoths faced the Huns. It was one of the bloodiest battles in antiquity, halting Attila's advance. Attila turned toward Italy, but was persuaded to turn back by Pope Leo. Like Stilicho before him, Aetius was murdered by a jealous emperor. Rome had killed its last defender. The end was now inevitable. In 455, the Vandals arrived by sea. This sack was thorough and brutal. They stripped the copper roof from the Temple of Jupiter. The treasures of the Temple of Jerusalem, brought by Titus centuries before, were carted away. The final years saw a parade of puppet emperors, controlled by barbarian generals like Retimer. Finally, the general Orestes placed his young son on the throne. His name was Romulus Augustulus, little Augustus. He bore the name of Rome's founder and its first emperor, a tragic irony. The Germanic mercenaries demanded land in Italy. When refused, they turned to Odoacer. Odoacer marched on Ravenna. There was no one left to fight him. On September 4th, 476 AD, Romulus was forced to abdicate. Odoacer, taking pity on his youth, spared his life and sent him into retirement. But the imperial insignia were packed up and sent to Constantinople. The message to the Eastern Emperor Zeno was clear. The West no longer needs an emperor. With that quiet administrative act, the Roman Empire in the West ceased to exist. For the average peasant, life went on much as before. They simply paid taxes to a Gothic king instead of a Roman emperor. But the great machine had stopped. The aqueducts began to leak. The great baths, without wood for the fires or water for the pools, fell cold. Rome's population plummeted from 1 million to a few thousand. The Forum Romanum became the Campo Vaccino, the cow field. In the vacuum of imperial power, the church stepped in to fill the void. Monasteries became the arks of civilization, preserving the texts of the ancients. Decades later, Justinian would try to retake the West. But the Gothic Wars only devastated Italy further. A shadow fell over Europe. The light of antiquity flickered and died. It would be centuries before a new emperor would be crowned in the West. Rome did not fall in a day. It transformed. Its Latin tongue evolved into the languages of nations. Its laws became the foundation of justice. Its architecture inspired the cathedrals of the future. The physical empire was gone, but the idea of Rome remains eternal. History is a cycle of rise and fall. And in the ruins, we see our own reflection. Power is fleeting. The guards have left the walls. Only the birds remain, witnessing the silence. Fragments of glory in the dust. A coin dropped by a fleeing citizen, waiting to be found. The pillars that held up the sky have fallen. Nature reclaims what was borrowed. The fall of Rome,